India today ranks as the 11th among 154 nations in terms of cryptocurrency adoption, and the investments grew from 923 billion of US dollars in April 2020 to 6.6 billion in May 21. Well, we need to know more about this. It is an area which is not known to many. And if we don't know more about this, we will all be left behind. And we have an international expert, Professor Krish Pillai, who will be talking to us from Washington. Mr. Pillai, as you all must have read in the flyer, has been a management expert, and he has worked in US government as well as many private companies, which are basically Fortune 500 companies. He has worked in India, he has worked with the World Bank, and we could not have located a more suitable person than Mr. Pillai to talk about the emerging world of cryptocurrency. And I thank Mr. Venugopal, the past president, for taking the initiative and introducing him to us and bringing him to the Chamber Forum. I welcome him to the session of the CEO Forum. I also welcome all members. I welcome the sponsors, Mrs. Mahindra Holidays, and everyone who has bothered to log in on a chilly morning. Thank you very much. Over to you, Mr. Pillai.
Thank you, Mr. Harikumar. Good morning to everybody. It was a wonderful introduction by Sri Harikumar. I'm especially thankful to him for the kind words. And I must thank V. Venugopal, past president of the chamber, for arranging this conference, the short notice. I'm also extremely thankful to all the participants who are attending this morning. The emerging technology is transforming the world finance from CEFI to DEFI, that is centralized financial system to decentralized financial system. Crypto or digital currencies are the product of information technology and innovations in the world of decentralized finance. CEFI and DEFI is a new buzzword. With this brief introduction, let me start my presentation. Can I share my slides? With your permission, I'm going to start my presentation.
Please.
Yes, sir. Please.
Is it visible?
Yes.
Okay.
We have no screen sharing. Have you done it?
Yeah, I did the screen sharing. Did you get it?
No.
Thomas, have you given the permission?
Yes, sir. I've given the permission.
Yeah, it is coming. It is coming.
Okay, sorry.
Not yet. Has it come? No.
Is it visible?
It has not come. Thomas?
It takes a little time, I guess. It's a full screen.
Share screen.
Yes.
So do you want me to share it from here?
Yeah, share it.
But then he will not be able to control it, isn't it, Thomas?
Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second.
Share this.
Yeah, it is coming. Yeah.
Yeah.
You make it full screen.
If you make it full
No,
screen,
it's okay.
then the rest of the things go away.
Slideshow.
Through the slideshow.
Ah. Yeah.
Okay. All right, good.
I think
This
all
presentation-
all others should mute now.
Yeah, that will be better. So this presentation is made as a half a day introduction to cryptocurrency, virtual currency, blockchain technology, etc. Now I'm going to compress that to 40 minutes. However, it is important to just have a feel of how the technology has evolved to the current stage. So I'm going to talk a little bit about information technology evolution and the advancement in digital computers and communications, and emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, and blockchain, which are all interrelated at this point of time. I'm also going to talk on world of Bitcoins and cryptocurrencies. As you know that there are over 10,000 cryptocurrencies in place today. And the more interesting topic is decentralized finance and tokenomics. It's a new area which is coming up very fast. And I'm also briefly going to touch upon the decentralized finance challenges for India. Then will be followed by question and answers. As you all know that binary system is the fundamental to digital computers. Binary system was invented by George Boole in 1950s. He developed the entire Boolean algebra based on the number system binary, which has only two symbols, that is zeros and ones. The entire digital computer system in the whole of universe work on the basic principle of 0 and 1. It does not understand anything other than 0 and 1. And coming to the computer as of today, programmable computers were invented by Alan Turing in 1930s. And von Neumann is the father of the digital computer architecture. And World War II, we used only analog computers. Digital computers were not developed well at that time because of the vacuum tube is very complex to manufacture computers. So ENIAC is the first functional vacuum tube digital computer. Invention of transistors and digital computer manufacturing has exponentially progressed since 1950s, 60s, and 70s. 50s and 60s, we saw the integrated circuit enabled a digital computer run faster. Also, we have seen the development of higher level programming languages like Fortran and COBOL. The first commercial digital computer was IBM 1401, which was an 8-bit business data processing computer with a programming language called autocoder. Followed by a scientific computer. On those days, scientific computer and business computer was two separate entities. And in 60s, IBM developed the first hierarchical database management system. And 1969, two mathematics professors by the name Coates and Date developed the relational data model, which is being used even today. The databases like Oracle and DB2, etc., are all relational data models. Then we have seen the additional high-powered computers from IBM was a premier in computer manufacturing. Also, the ICL, it's a British-made computers. And you have noticed that on those days, the punch card was the data processing medium. That means that it was a batch processing. There was no online processing. In 70s and 80s, we have seen further advancement in the microelectronics. Intel Corporation invented their 4-bit microprocessor in 1971, followed by LSI and VLSI chips. The concept of virtual computers were introduced in 1970s by IBM. In 1973, IBM declared unbundling of software products, which has really made a lot of changes in the computer industry. Until then, IBM used to give free all the software along with the hardware. 73, they decided to monetize the software separately. That really seen the growth of computers, companies like Microsoft and Oracle. They developed software for different computer applications. India entered the computer manufacturing in those years, ECIL, HCL, PSI, etc. Mini computers and desktop personals were getting more popular in 1980s. Unix and C was the basic operating system and the language. Computer networking was also getting popular in 1980s. Arrival of the office automation products like Microsoft Office really changed the office environment. And fully relational database management system was in place in 1980s, which can store and manipulate millions and millions and millions of records. 1990s, we have seen a shift in the software development area, which is called software engineering. That means until then, the software was developed as a artisan's product. It was not an engineering product. There was a lot of push from the industry to move towards the engineering process for the software. So we call now the software engineering. And computer-aided software engineering tools were developed in those days. That means without programming, with the using tools, you can develop the software for applications. The release of Internet protocol in 1993 ushered the birth of Internet. The basic communication protocol used in the Internet is TCP/IP, which was a phenomenal advancement in the communication system. Software-oriented architecture and object-oriented approach in the programming and software development was also developed during 1950s. The main languages were being used is C++, HTML, XML, etc. On those days, it was a first generation internet that's only GUI application that we essentially, it's a browser-based application. You cannot enter information, but you can display some information on the internet. That was the first generation internet. Introduction of email was also initiated at that point of time. You have heard of the Y2K program, which initiated large-scale funding for software updates. Y2K was is a bug or a misdevelopment on those days where programmers, instead of using 4-digit year code, they used the 2-digit to save the computer memory. So with the result in 1999 and compared with the 99 and 2000, so the program will fail, and which created a substantial fund in the industry for further development. The Y2K is over. Many corporations and government agencies had billions of dollars in fund. They put all the money into the upcoming technology, and then we see in the next couple of years, a lot of investment, but there is no products. So that we call as .com bubble. Subsequently, we recovered from that. High volume online transactions on the internet was made possible. Large databases started using for artificial intelligence, machine learning, essentially kudos to Google systems. Cloud computing became very popular. Previously, the computers were essentially called client server. Every company organization has got its own main server, and the computer is connected to that server. Now, the client computing or cloud computing, which made it possible that the server can be located anywhere, and any computer can be connected through the cloud through the global network. TCP/IP protocol which was again the key or backbone of the communication system, was enhanced by something called SMTP for the email interoperability. Launch of Bitcoin in 2019 ushered in the first blockchain system. Also, blockchain is a concept, software concept, which was appeared in a white paper in 1990, mid-1990s, but is never used. A pseudonym called Satoshi Nakamoto is the gentleman who developed the entire blockchain system to launch the Bitcoin. When the Bitcoin is initially released, its price was roughly about 20 cents. There was no demand. And subsequently, we have seen the smartphones, tablets, and proliferation of computer applications on the internet. It's called apps. So everybody is familiar with app. And the computer development platforms are essentially Java, .NET, and then they were the front runners of the reusable software codes. Next, we will see the next generation of internet with the new protocols and new framework and platforms. Protocols are nothing but the basic concept in the codified form. The framework is the software developed to perform the protocols, and platform is named for a particular type of application. In other words, these protocols, framework, and platforms are essentially an integral unit of the computer system. To give an example, until about 10, 15 years back, we could not have video streaming on the internet. There was a protocol and framework and platform developed for video streaming. It's called OTP. So OTP enabled the video streaming in the video streaming industry. Now it's a big boom in that. Similarly, stock exchange developed their own software. So exchange software, it's a platform who can run the stock trading. So when I talk about protocols, framework, and platform, these are essentially the software structures, components for developing a system. What is blockchain technology? Blockchain technology is a bit different than the existing computer systems. The then existing computer systems, everything was centrally controlled and centrally processed. There is a central computer to do everything. But in the concept of blockchain technology, it's a decentralized peer-to-peer computer network architecture, which means it is distributed all over the place in the form of computer nodes or personal computers or laptops, or even smartphones. Peer-to-peer means one-to-one. It is connected to each other. Every member is connected to every other member in the node. That kind of architecture is called blockchain network architecture. Another interesting feature of the blockchain is the data is encrypted and stored in a chain records called blocks. Why it is encrypted? Because data security privacy was a problem in the regular internet system. People were hacking and stealing the data. In order to avoid that, a new technology was invented that is encrypting the data before it's stored. So cryptography is a mathematical process for encrypting the data. The data is also time-stamped, and that is immutable. That means once a record is stored in the blockchain technology, that record is not removable, not deletable, not changeable. So it's already fully time-stamped. That each record has got a timestamp which contains up to the microseconds of the time. Network access is controlled by something called PKI infrastructure. It's called the public key infrastructure, which means in order to access any blockchain network, you have two keys. One is a public key, another is a private key. Private key is very confidential for that particular node or particular user. And public key is referred to all the nodes in order for the data to be connected. So in order to access any specific recorded data, you need to provide both. This is something similar to our logbox in the bank. So the bank has got its own key, and they have provided a private key for us. Unless both the keys are together, we cannot open the logbox. Exactly similar to that, but in a very mathematically oriented process. That's called public key infrastructure. System operates in an autonomous manner. There is no central control. Hitherto, the computer systems were centrally controlled and then centrally managed and centrally operated. There is no autonomous processing of computer systems. In this process, in this blockchain technology, computer system autonomously operate. To make it a little more clear, what is autonomous operation? For example, you know that most of the airlines now, they have an autopilot. Today, they can punch in the GPS number of the destination from the original point. They punch it and start the system. The plane is absolutely autonomous to fly until it lands, or it's after landing. It is possible. So for the entire operation period, entire flight period, nobody has to touch anything. The system, the computer system in the flight will take care of everything. So that's an autonomous process, or we can say self-driving car. It's an autonomous system. Once you give the destination and then start go, it will navigate through the roads and finally reach the place. You don't have to do anything. It's a completely self-driven car. It is an autonomous process. So something similar to that is in blockchain. Blockchain is an autonomous process. The software is developed and designed for that purpose to run it autonomously. There's something called data mining. Data mining is the way we create the coin in a blockchain system. So the cryptocurrencies are mined using a process. Its process is called a consensus algorithm. I already mentioned that the computer network together work on the same software. All the computer nodes has got the same software working concurrently. In a Bitcoin operations, when somebody want to transfer money, a node want to transfer money to somebody else, the instructions are given, and every computer in the mining facility will compete for collecting the recording privilege. Suppose there are about 50 computers, all computers are equally competing to get that privilege using a consensus algorithm. It's a mathematical algorithm. In the case of Bitcoin, it's a very complex mathematical problem is given to the computer, all computers at the same time. It normally takes about 10 minutes to calculate. Millions and billions of calculations that go through. Whoever completes first, they will have the privilege to record the data. That recording of data in the database is called mining. That privilege is given to that computer who first solved the problem, and it's also approved by all the other computers concurrently. That's how the software developed. So it gives a mining right. That's how the coins are mined. And there's other way of raising the coin. I will come to that little later. As you all know that Bitcoin is the first cryptocurrency in the world. We already mentioned that Bitcoin platform is developed using the blockchain technology. Cryptocurrency coins and tokens. I also mentioned that there are over 10,000 cryptocurrencies in place today. Using the cryptocurrency platform, one can issue something called initial coin offerings.
Thomas, could you mute everyone? Could you mute everyone, Thomas?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
So initial coin offering is if somebody has developed a platform for coin offering, and they can raise capital using initial coin offerings. Initial coin offering is a process by which a blockchain platform is initiated, and the developers issue a part of their assets as the coins. There are many platforms available. I'm going to come to that, the list of that. So initial coin offering is provided by the software for launching their network or their platform. There are two things in the crypto world. One is called coin. The other is called a token. The difference between coin and the token, it is easy to understand that you can conceive coin as something equivalent to a currency, and the token as issued by a stock company stock. So token and coin can be interchangeable, but it's not one and the same. So these days, the coins are more popular in the field of decentralized financing. I'll come to that a little later. And in order for the coins to operate, there are multiple companies are issuing the coins, and in order that it has to be interoperable, scalable, and continue the data privacy, there are a lot of procedures are developed for this in the blockchain. There are multi-billion-dollar platforms are under development stage at this time. You'll see the list of few of them later. The platforms are generally categorized as public, private, and permission network. As I mentioned that Bitcoin is the first blockchain application. Ethereum is a number 2. Ethereum is developed by one of the active participants of the Bitcoin and a few other computer scientists together. Bitcoin is a $50 billion foundation and founded in Switzerland now. Ethereum is the second popular blockchain platform today. Bitcoining, as I mentioned earlier, that it takes about 10 minutes to do one transactions, and it is not developed for all kind of financial transactions. However, they are also modifying their network, something called a Lightning Network. And MIT Lab is very actively participating in the Bitcoin development platform. Ethereum is the second popular one. Then IBM has also come up with their own blockchain platform. It's called Hyperledger Fabric, with using the IBM Linux Foundation. And IBM Hyperledger Fabric is little more versatile. They developed this blockchain platform for any kind of applications. Not only financial applications, it can be applied for any other applications. Some of the products now available is Avalanche, Polkadot, Solano, Cardano. These are multi-billion-dollar DeFi, decentralized finance application products. It's under development. Some of them are under development. Some of them are under development and only partially available for use today. And as you know that the cryptocurrencies are not under the government regulations at this time. However, the US government and many other European governments have introduced two new controls in the sense that KYC and IML. KYC is nothing but know your customer. Before you issue a user ID for cryptocurrency operations, the exchanges are asked to get the full knowledge of the customer and also enforce the anti-money laundering system. So these are two requirements with all the exchanges has to follow. Now, in the world of cryptocurrency, there are three important things, important subsets or sub-institutions. One is the mining company who holds the complete data storage capabilities. There are many mining companies. When they mine, they get their own currencies and they keep those currencies. And as you know, the blockchain or Bitcoin is a limited supply asset. So initially, they have only released only few million. As of today, there are about 19 million has been released. They have only 21 million in total. So the value depends upon the supply and demand. They control the supply in order to improve the price. That is what is happening in most of the cryptocurrencies. They control the supply and in order to price. So it is a kind of gambling. So blockchain is based on with no control system, no intermediaries. In the case of DeFi, that is decentralized finance, no intermediaries like banks, brokerage firms, money exchanges, etc. Everything is self-governed. That governing process is done by something called smart contract. Smart contract is nothing but a piece of program, a software developed and executed that performs the entire function in a binding the contract terms. How it is binding the contract terms? The software is developed with the help of the attorneys, software experts, and financial experts. So all the legal terms, all the financial terms which are required for a transaction is embedded in the smart contract. So once the smart contract is executed, there is no going back on that. So that's why the speed at which smart contract can operate is tremendously higher in compared to centrally financed system. Even today, as you know, that we have to send money from New York to Bombay. Technically it takes only a few seconds, but money will not be realized until few days. The reason being in the centralized system, because the check and balances are manually processed. It's not computerized. So they don't have the computerized automatic process because they don't trust. So trust is based on the manual process. In the case of the blockchain smart contract, it is a trust-based system. The trust is This is programmed with all features and functionalities and terms and conditions within the program itself. So DeFi ecosystem use smart contract use cases. Use cases mean different kind of applications. We will see some of these applications currently in operation. Ethereum is the first user of DeFi for use case implementation. Ethereum is Bitcoin cannot use, Bitcoin software platform cannot use the smart contract features. It doesn't have the smart contract feature. The first smart contract feature is available only in the Ethereum. Smart contract feature is the one make it all other applications work, not only money transfer. In addition to that, a lot of financial products can be developed using this. And also it is being developed now. DeFi has a support called its own coin is called ETH. Now, there are other coins are also being initiated. A stable coin is backed by US dollar. The coin and tokens is a flexible, the value can vary anytime. In order to avoid the value variations, now the industry has come out with the new standards. They issue something called a stable coin. Once you convert the stable coin and use that stable coin for operating the network, that coin will never change its value. On the other hand, other 10,000 coins available, tokens available, they don't guarantee the value. Today, the value can be something, tomorrow it can be half or double. So nobody can predict and nobody can control. So in order to get the stability in the financial system, the decentralized financial system made some additional features. One is that stable coin. It's backed by US dollar. Once you convert the stable into a stable coin, this always remain to be your dollar. Your value will not, you will not lose the value. There's also a concept called exchangeable tokens and NFTs. Non-fungible tokens. In other words, the coins are not always stable. Its value can go down, or value can go to zero. So with the result, there are new issuers of the decentralized financial system. They are issuing something called non-fungible token. That means it will never go to zero. So you can start a business of developing an application, and then you can issue non-fungible tokens, which will be more valuable than initial coins, unless the initial coin is proven like a Bitcoin or Ethereum. Ethereum value was about a couple of $100 last year. Today, it is about $1,600. These are some of the DeFi application platforms available. For example, Aava is a multi-chain lending and borrowing category. That means if you have a cryptocurrency using Aava, you can lend that money to somebody else and earn interest on that. So Aava Curve Finance is an exchange. That means, if you have money to send somewhere or transfer somewhere or buy the new tokens or coins, you can use those exchanges to buy. I believe it is available in India also. This decentralized exchanges are available in India. Maker is another software product. It's a smart contract product from Ethereum for lending and borrowing. Lending and borrowing, if you have currency in the cryptocurrency, you don't have to keep it in without earning any money. You can use for that currency for lending operation. That means they pool the money and lend it to somebody, they give you a rate of return. Similarly, if you are a holder of cryptocurrencies, you can also borrow funds for your projects. These operations are available even today. And the another company, Nexus Mutual, multi-chain means it uses multiple platforms to develop the software product. They do the insurance operations. For example, a project is started and then that project has to be insured. They do the insurance using cryptocurrencies. See, all these things are decentralized and using cryptocurrencies. How can you participate? First thing is you have to start an account in the crypto exchange. Using fiat currency, US dollar or even Indian rupees, if you can buy US dollar, or you can say your credit card is, you can purchase in Dubai. So that card can purchase something equal to US dollar also. So if the function available, you can go to the crypto exchange and start an account and buy any of the cryptocurrencies available in the market for the current rate, and they will issue a wallet. A wallet is something but you hold your asset. So once you start an account, you put some money into it. Initially, it has to be fiat currency. That means a normal currency of any international currency. And then you can trade. You can use that wallet to trade into other cryptocurrencies. You can buy cryptocurrencies and you can sell cryptocurrencies and use cryptocurrency for lending and borrowing and all kinds of things. So exchange does that function of buying and selling and transaction initiation. Coin mining is the computer where the data is minced and stored. So it's stored in the blockchain. One interesting thing is this data is very well distributed on everybody's computer. Everybody in the network, everybody get the same piece of data. However, you can only see your data because it's cryptographically coded, and you don't know the private key of the other user, other wallet. In some of the currency systems, for example, Bitcoin, if you use your wallet, that if you lose your key for the wallet, you lose the entire money. You cannot recover it back. But that is why later they initiated new products like non-fungible tokens. Non-fungible tokens is it will never go away. Somebody will keep track of that. So the exchanges will keep track of that. In the case of Bitcoin, it doesn't happen. Now, the popular exchanges are Coinbase, CoinBureau, and Binance. Coinbase is a US listed company. Stock value, it's about $240 today. CoinBureau is also equally popular, well-established company. They're all solid financial institutions like Citibank and things like that. These are not mom and pop shops. So in order for you to get started, you can log on to Coinbase, and Coinbase has got online exchanges. And then you can do your transactions. I mentioned that the smart contract are the engines of the decentralized finance. I have a couple of questions. Probably I will answer some of these things as we finish this. Smart contract are nothing but software modules called DApp. DApp is nothing but a crypto platform app. We have seen earlier, app is nothing but a internet application module, which the smartphones has got now. So DApp is nothing but a crypto app. See, DApp is the common method of or transaction interfacing. That when a transaction is created and executed using DApp. And DApp use case developers are in very high demand now. The hundreds of DApps are being developed. It's already available now, but it's going to be highly demanding field, development of DApp. Also mentioned that the DApp enables liquidity of the non-fungible tokens. DeFi challenges. Although it's a highly innovative new technology, it's highly dependent on the digital technology network. The entire financial system depends on the digital technology and network. It's in infancy stage. It's fast growing, but still there's a lot way to go. The third world countries' participation is poor and slow. That's because the awareness is not there. Essentially, decentralized system is more useful for the third world countries because it's a more egalitarian approach for finance. Is a country, for example, one of the software platform like Cardona, they have actively working with the government of Ethiopia to introduce the decentralized financial system to their rural population. Then the regulations of sovereign central banks and IMF, there is no regulation now at this point of time. So with the result, we are uncertain about what is likely to happen in this decentralized finance. And other thing is questionable liquidity flow. As you know that these days you would have seen the papers, or we were all familiar with the Swiss bank, Panama Papers, and now Pandora's paper. So all these funds are managed by the vested interest. If the vested interest, again, vested interest is the one which is going to essentially distributed finance also is going to be managed. Although it is decentralized, but the programs are developed for the purpose of their own interest. The liquidity of this fund either can flow into the third world countries or it can stop flowing into the third world countries. And the hope is that this will essentially, liquidity will flow into third world countries. The current system is, for example, our wealthy people invest money in Swiss bank and in other places. It doesn't come back to poor countries. It essentially goes back to rich countries. But that could be likely to be reversed. The other thing is a danger of parallel decentralized world economy. Because this is not based on the fiat currency, it's going to be based on the new tokens. That is called tokenomics. Also, it is potential for concentration of global wealth. This is my opinion. And the system is extremely complex. The blockchain technologies challenges are, concept is good, technical perfection is long way to go. The overly redundant hardware deployment. Scalability is a major issue and poor transaction processing speed. High infrastructure cost and slow adoption rate. And as I said, likely to read a crypto economy versus controlled economy of IMF and WTO, etc. Security protocols are still questionable. Regulations are inevitable. DeFi opportunities for India. As a software development country, India has got fantastic opportunity to get into the DeFi ecosystem development. However, today the awareness is not there. Unless the awareness is not created and is unlikely to happen, so we may miss this opportunity. India has got a fantastic opportunity to pump millions of people into the development of DeFi applications, because DeFi applications are going to stay as a growth potential for India. And the DeFi application require software people, they need financial experts, and also they need legal experts. So there's a lot of job opportunities for the Indian software, finance, and legal industry. We will see the exponential growth of the DApp in the smart contract production. What we need is appropriate software trained human capital, which India can have. And also, if India plays properly, there is a potential to increase the flow of DeFi capital to India. The other thing is opportunity for private participation in new DeFi ventures. In conclusion, cryptocurrencies is likely to be the new source of capital. Autonomous, equitable, open source DeFi platform is supported by the blockchain. Blockchain evolution determines the future of the cyberspace. Blockchain, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, these are the most emerging and useful technologies as we know now. Blockchain is the backbone of emerging DeFi explosion. No cryptocurrency can exist without blockchain. So with this, I conclude my talk. I will have few questions, and let me go to the chat box.
Before we get into the chat box,
Yeah.
so let me, on behalf of the chamber, thank you for staying awake late night. It's almost 11:30 in Washington and taking us through the engineering perspective of the Bitcoin. It was a very wonderful lecture, and you could educate us about the various engineering aspects. Now, before we get into the chat box, some elementary questions are there.
Sure.
Today, Bitcoin is being traded around $54,000 US. And there are predictions that by 2025, it can touch even $350,000, or it can even go up to $1 million. What is your take on that?
Honestly, I must say that I'm a fiscally conservative and socially progressive person. Fiscally conservative and socially progressive person. Now, let me explain this one. US runs lottery on a regular basis, and there is some lottery which says $50 million is the minimum floor price. And every week there is a drawing coming up, and some week there is no winners. So eventually the prize money goes up from 50 million to 200 million, 300 million, 500 million. Sometimes it went up to 800 million. But once it goes over 200 million, the rate of purchase of the people much higher and higher and higher. The speed at which people acquire that is very high. They all know that there's only one person can win. That's exactly what is happening in the case of Bitcoin, because people are hoping that because of the limitation of the total coin can be issued. They already issued about 18,000 coins, 18 million coins. Only 3 million coins are left over, and these 3 million coins will be released only by the end of this century. That's how it is programmed. So it is a supply and demand situation. That's where the price is going to increase. And again, if you look at people who are investing in this one, this is a absolutely anonymous kind of fund. You don't have to declare where the fund is coming from. There's a lot of money has been slashed into places like Swiss Bank and other institutions, where some of them, they think that if they put it here, it is more stable and money grows. As far as the technology is concerned, it is going to survive for some time. But I'm sure that government is going to crack down on some of these things. And at that point of time, we don't know what is likely to happen, because if government is going to crack down, that means they will be asking to reveal the authenticity of these coin holders. And depends upon the authenticity and the domicile of the places. And they are going to crack down on the tax. So it is in my opinion, it is totally unpredictable, because today it is $54,000. It came in from 3 years back, it was less than $7,000. And it went up to $20,000. Then it came back to $5,000. So it cannot be predicted on the Bitcoin. Bitcoin essentially, it's only a parking place. It cannot be effectively used for trading, because many places they are not opened up fully for the Bitcoin for trading. On the other hand, the other cryptocurrencies, they are more valuable for a trading people. So it's more likely that other coins, other tokens are going to increase in value for the next few years. Like Solana, Cardano, and so many other platforms are being developed. There are hundreds and thousands of scientists are working currently to doing this complex technology. They're putting a lot of effort into it. Now, a lot of money from these unaccounted money sources is going to flow into those areas, including from the Bitcoin. This is my thinking.
Thank you, sir.
Could you stop that screen sharing, Mr. Pillai, so
Oh,
that
sure,
the videos can be?
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Another question which
Yes,
has come up is, let him concentrate on that, then we can.
Click to exit.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Stop it.
Another
Stop
question which has come up is, you two were talking about the fluctuations in the Bitcoin price and all that. See, we also have seen that one tweet by Elon Musk is enough to send the price skyrocketing. Don't you think some regulation should come in so that there is more stability? There are more fundamentals in the pricing.
Now, everybody people like you and me like regulations. But people in the power, they don't like regulations. Even in our case, we know that from Indian side, there's billions and billions and billions of Indian asset has been stacked in Swiss Bank and other places. If that money comes to India, imagine the economic position of India. And the government of India at some point of time got the list of 1,700 people. Even the Supreme Court of India knows about all these people. We are not able to take a decision on that. In a democratic system, it is impossible to change that concept easily. So regulation will be minimal. It will come eventually, but it will be minimal. But any capitalist system, the capitalism is going to control the politicians, the people in power. And small countries like Cuba or El Salvador or other places, they can do something, but they will not have an effect in the larger scheme of the economics in the world, because they don't control the finance of the world. So capitalist countries are very unlikely to get serious regulations into this business for at least in the near future.
So you don't think the example of El Salvador or Cuba will be replicated by other countries?
If you look at the El Salvador and Cuba, because it's not democratic country, it is the vested interest of the man in power to do that. For him to take money out of the country is easy way to do it, this one, in unaccounted manner. So he can probably manage to take, probably 1/10 of the wealth of the country and vanish from the place and live in Switzerland.
There is another question from Mr. Vineet Balachandran. He was asking about whether you can explain on the NFT concept and how one can monetize it.
Yeah, NFT is a relatively new concept developed in the few years back, because many coin exchanges started and they flopped. They went under. With the result, people lost money. So then they created the concept of, the newer companies created concept of, yes, we will issue the coin. At the same time, the coin can be converted to tokens. And these tokens are non-fungible, non-deletable, but the value will change. As I said, token is a, let's say, Toyota dealership, when you buy the car and they give 1,000 token, this token can be used by you or your friends to do servicing on the car in the Toyota dealership. So it's transferable, the value will stay as it is. Even if the service fee goes up, he will say that, okay, these 2 coins will be enough for oil change, or 5 coins will be enough for engine work, whatever that is. So some concept like that. So non-fungible token is that category. There are institutions where you have tokens, as I said, you can invest that token in lending pool. So when you invest the token in the lending pool will take it and then give it to the borrowers, and the interest or the revenue created out of that will be shared to you. And tokens are also issued by the developing companies, software developing, the companies who are developing the platforms. So when their revenue goes up, this token value will go up. For example, Cardano has a token value of $2.5 or something now. In my own prediction is that the Cardano the chief is a mathematical genius. He's a PhD in mathematics, and he has got at least about 1,000 scientists working with him. And he developed all the technology papers at a peer-to-peer valuation university, where many universities are involved in that. He's a top-notch guy in that. I have been following him. If you buy that token now, it is possible that in a couple of years, it may go like probably 100 times, 200 times, 500 times. But they are more stable because they are based on the technological development. They are developing this platform for other people to use it to develop, create revenue. See, Bitcoin does not create any revenue. Bitcoin absolutely working on supply and demand. The other decentralized finance systems are something similar to our existing centralized financial system. Only thing is, it is on it's on their own currencies. It doesn't have anything to do with your sovereign currency or fiat currency. That many people like it because they don't want to account their income or wealth. So that way, in my own thinking, the value of this decentralized finance system eventually will upset the world finance itself. That means the total value carried by those companies will be together more than the total values of the countries. Because in the process of trading, they can trade online. they don't have to use US dollar. If the trust is created, large shipping companies, they operate on digital currency. They don't do it the dollar at all. They don't do it any of the, because this is a stable currency for them. It's an unaccounted as far as the institutions, governments are concerned. So this is a huge operation going to be, and it's valuable for India. For example, let's say there is a project, in Cochin, you want to create a project which costs about, let's say, $10 million. Few of you join together, can start a foundation or a company, whatever that is. Then use one of the software to create an initial coin offering. People around, if it is a useful project for Cochin city, and the Kerala people are aware of this, there's a lot of Kerala people all over the world. You issue the coin for 1,000 rupees or 2,000 rupees for this project. Let's say this project is it's a tourism development project. Initial investment is $10 million. And once the project is accomplished, you are expecting that $1 million return in this. So now this money you can pool using the cryptocurrency.
It's a very novel idea, sir. We will take it forward from the chamber side, because this is basically the model which CL also used, but that time there was no cryptocurrency per se. But they started dealing in, they started taking money from the people, and that time they gave Indira Vikas Patra, which that time used to double every 5 years. So that the investment of the people also is safe, because the principal investment comes back in the form of Indira Vikas Patra, and the money, the CL could use the money. Now coming to the next question, Mr. Nanan Matthew has a question whether it lacks transparency as we currently understand currency, and whether it can succeed only in a universal digital world.
Transparency, I don't understand what the transparency means here. Cryptocurrencies are not transparent to anybody else. It's a transparent to its owner only. In other words, if I'm a cryptocurrency holder, I don't have to reveal to anybody how much I hold. I can trade it, I can use it, I can buy it, I can give it to people. It's all my business. And the system is made in such a manner that it will never get lost. For example, I can nominate my people, my other people whom I want to give it away when I'm not here. So everything is a trusted, controlled, legalized system. And most of the operations in the crypto world, as I said, this is an autonomous process. I told you, where a program is developed and run, it's autonomous. Nobody can manipulate that. That's why when you have a cryptocurrency, you are lending to some institutions, you can trustfully lend that institution money because their process is transparent. What is not transparent is individual wallet values. How much you have, how much I have, or how much somebody else, nobody will know about it. But the rest of the operations like exchanges, the mining, the system, everything is transparent. So that's the nature of the cryptocurrency, because they want to keep it as transparent. And because of the whole recording of using cryptography, it's very difficult to crack and find out also. So in the case of Swiss Bank, there was a pressure for 20-30 years that they didn't do anything, but because it's all private banks. But when the many government pressurized them, their local government, the Swiss government has pressurized on the banks, hey, you have to reveal it, otherwise we will have problems. But in this case, that is not going to happen.
Thank you very much. Another question has come from Mr. Nanan Philip, which would be thrilling to many environmentalists, is it seems Bitcoin mining consumes a lot of energy and almost 0.5% of world energy consumption. So whether that will cause any sustainability issues?
Yes, absolutely true. See, that's why Bitcoin is not a popular coin in the environmental community. The amount of Bitcoin, in order to mine one Bitcoin, use about 10 minutes minimum for hundreds of computers working concurrently. These are, mind you, this is a very, very high speed computers, highest speed computers in the world is deployed for this to mine and capture the right to record the data. Mining is nothing but the right to record the process in order to get the money. Now, it is estimated that the Bitcoin uses energy equivalent to New Zealand's energy consumption for a day. Each day, Bitcoin farm industry uses that much of energy. So it's a big negative point for the Bitcoin. So they are also improving their technology. That's why I said there's something called faster lightning network. They are introduced something called lightning network. There are 2-3 aspects in this which I did not discuss in detail. One is called, I just mentioned that one is called process called consensus algorithm. The consensus algorithm is the one which makes the complication, the system complication, and also that algorithm uses the autonomous process. So the newer systems like IBM system, it doesn't use that kind of power. But still, there's a lot of redundant hardware, redundant communication system, but that is the basic nature of blockchain technology. Distributed means everybody has got the same kind of computer system available, and the data, every data will be stored there. That is a basic protocol of the technology. But as we are moving now, they are redefining those protocols because they found that this is too expensive, too what is called redundant. So it's going to change. So as I said, we are in a initial stage now. In the next 10 years, as we move along, the technology is also going to change. It will improve the operation speed. Today, the MasterCard can process about 20,000 transactions per second. The fastest computer in Ethereum can only process about 2,000 records today per second. So technology is evolving. Eventually, in a few years' time, it will change. But this decentralized finance concept is not going to go away. In fact, it's going to catch as a wildfire in the new world. The reason being, we have the legacy of this non-governmental funds or government unaccounted funds with the businessmen. The Davos is the major center for this kind of operations. They control the policies of these things. They may not control the banking system, they control the policies of the system. I think they are very much into the decentralized financing system. Because where they get the control of this, the corporations get the control eventually, not the governments. The argument they put is that because it is decentralized, it will be equitably distributed to everybody. Even Africa and India and third world countries will have the same privileges of borrowing money like America or Europe. But in practice, we have to wait and see.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Nainan Matthew has one more question. His question is, as it's not backed by gold or IMF drawing rights, it's more based on speculation. Is it a correct understanding? I think you have already answered it, saying
absolutely. Yeah, it is supply and demand only.
Another question, Mr. Vineet, is ICO similar to IPO in the regular share market?
Yes, you can say it is not exactly IPO. it is the IPO of IPO of the decentralized finance system. But it's an IPO. What will I say? An IPO requires a lot of regulations and paperwork. ICO do not require that much of things. ICO, as I said, if 10 of you decide to start a cryptocurrency operation business to do some project, because essentially you have to collect money and you promise money once the project is done using this cryptocurrency. There are people in the world willing to offer that kind of things, because if it is a charitable project or a useful project, and also their money is stable and it is used effectively for good purposes, there are people who will put money. So it is a sort of IPO, but it's not exactly IPO.
Thank you very much. I think, see, another question which has basically come up is, see, why is Ethereum less valued in spite of being more efficient and more economic and eco-friendly? Is it?
The reason being, Bitcoin is the first coin came in place, and its supply is limited, and demand is very high, price is going up. So is anything when the price goes up, naturally there is a inclination to trust that one. See, the price gone up during the last 2 years, unbelievable. And also now more and more information is leaking out of the system deliberately, saying that, say, it's only $21 million coins can be issued totally. 18 is already issued, only 3 million remaining. 3 million can be issued only in the next 70 years. Which means it's a speculation saying that there is a demand is going to be increased and supply is going to be limited. So people who want to invest this kind of money on they don't want to use it tomorrow or day after tomorrow, they have no use of that. For them to, as a investment opportunity of their disposable income, and eventually, reap a big benefit. That's what people are investing in this. So that's why I said, now the Bitcoin is the highest valued in terms of total currency over, I think it's 1.2 trillion or something is the total asset value of the Bitcoin. I'm not exactly right, something around that number. But there's no other coin as equivalent value. I think Ethereum has something like about between $200 to $300 billion. Anyway, please don't quote on this number because I'm doing guesswork.
I think we are nearing the end of the session. I would ask one more question. As an expert in alternate currencies, would you recommend any alternate coin, and would you suggest that it's okay to invest your disposable income? What is your take on that?
Let me say that I'm not an investment advisor. I'm not a finance advisor. I'm also not an expert in that investment area. So I decline to give any advice on that topic.
Okay.
Maria, can I have the last question?
Please.
See, looking forward, I believe I have a feeling that the banks will be replaced by this blockchain and cryptocurrencies. Is it a possibility?
No. Well,
after listening to whatever you said,
the way the current banking system is working will eventually lead to this kind of things. See, banks are going to adopt this kind of things. So bank is not going to go away. They are going to adopt this kind of things. But the system will be totally different. Lending and borrowing will be totally different. Asset transaction will be different. There will be centralized, for example, now Singapore and Hong Kong already initiated trading the assets, real estate assets on the decentralized exchange. In other words, today everybody has got the digital documentation of their real estate property. If I have a real estate in Singapore and I need some money, I can mortgage that property online and borrow money in the crystal form. Once it is one is in the cryptocurrency form, I can convert it to US dollar or any other currency also. So those kind of applications are going to come. That means all other uncashed investment is going to come into the financial market now. That will be unbelievable.
Hari, with
For
your
example,
permission, can I?
just to add an example, now I understand that these days you have in India, in Kerala, you have a lot of resorts. They invested a lot of money. That those resorts can raise fund using this kind of technology because it's a high yielding return or for an asset which is undervalued. Because currently it is undervalued because there is no usage for it.
Hari, with your permission, just one question. Somebody else also has asked the same thing. I also wanted to know about it. The future possibilities in India. Do you think there are opportunities for youngsters in India to get into this blockchain and bitcoins? Are there any courses in India, or is there a possibility of India starting IITs and all starting courses for this?
Absolutely.
Mr. Balachandran also has asked the same.
Yeah, in fact, a week back there was a conference in SEMS. I also, presented their valedictory address. The topic was blockchain and ethical hacking of blockchain systems. To tell you the truth, about 4 years back, I gave a lecture in the SEMS. It went overboard to everybody. Why I say that? There was no questions after my talk. Today, this was a 3-day session. There was a very active participation from the local students and professors and teachers. And they are teaching, blockchain technology very efficiently. There are students from rural engineering colleges using blockchain technology, produced some papers for their application. So to answer your question, yes, there is universities are already doing this, but more than the universities, there are other private enterprises can initiate this kind of skill development. There's a smart contract skill development. Similar things, what they need to know is a general computer understanding and 1 or 2 programming languages. So anybody can be trained probably to develop a smart contract in a year or year and a half training program. So these kind of training program is not started by universities. It should be started by other private institutions. There is an opportunity. So from between this decade, India can supply about 10 million. I must say 10 million people, software developers for DApp development worldwide. So it will be big boom if India can understand that. But I don't think there's any government initiative or private industries are not aware of this kind of opportunities. They are only know about Bitcoin and investment. But more than investment, India is concerned, this opportunity in the manpower. The only thing is we need to have the skill development and deploy it. And, we start exchanges and practice people on that.
So thank you, Professor. 4 years back, you had no questions. Now the questions never seem to end. So because it's almost 12 o'clock there, I don't want to hold you back. I would now request Mr. Venugopal, our immediate past president, to say the vote of thanks. And thank you from my side for a wonderful lecture.
Thank you.
Venu.
Good morning, everyone, and late good evening or maybe good night to Professor Pillai. Thank you, Professor Pillai, for the detailed presentation on emerging technologies and cryptocurrencies. Listening to the talk, my memories went back to the 90s when personal computers were getting into the, that got into our schedules. Many of us those days were hesitant to accept the computer use. Many political parties also were resisting it, holding that it will lose job opportunities, employment opportunities. Some of us even gave the excuses that after all, it's a glorified typewriter or a calculator. But over the years, technology evolved rapidly, and today we are in a world where we cannot survive without information technology and the use of computers. In fact, all of us use smartphones, and smartphones are mini computers today, actually. So without that, there's no existence, there's no survival for business or even personal life. Bitcoins and blockchain appears to be a very based on very complicated technologies and complex mathematics and algorithms, as Professor Pillai was explaining. But I'm sure technologies are going to evolve, and it will be much faster than the progress what has happened so far. And we all assume that we could be part of one of the days ahead. We all have to be part of it. Without that, there will be no existence in our business and life, as I mentioned. I don't think we have any choice also but to learn and understand the developments. In fact, the IPL cricket which is going on, already we are seeing advertisements for sale of Bitcoins. I was wondering whether it is legitimate and approved by RBI and government agencies. I personally look forward to the day when I can buy one Bitcoin or Ethereum. As you mentioned, it is only $1,600 the value of Ethereum. Am I right? $1,600.
Yes.
So one Bitcoin or Ethereum.
You can buy now.
Now it is 50,000.
So anyway, I look forward to buying my first Bitcoin or Ethereum, whichever it is. So thank you, Professor Pillai, for accepting our invitation and talking to us today. I know it is already midnight in Washington, DC. Thank you for staying late. On behalf of Cochin Chamber of Commerce and Industry, we are grateful to you and we express our thanks and gratitude for being with us and sharing all the technological developments, emerging technologies in computer and information technology. Thank you so much. We look forward to more such sessions from you, Professor Pillai. Thank you once again. And I take this opportunity to also thank our sponsors, Mahindra Holidays. It has been a great support from Mahindra for us to conduct the CEO Forum meetings. Thank you so much, Mahindra. And last but not least, I should thank each one of you who have logged in. Today, I was noticing that we have one of the largest attendance for the CEO Forum meeting. It was above 40. So it's a good sign. Let's look forward to better similar sessions and with more attendance in future. Thank you all once again. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for logging in early morning. And
Thank you.
good night,
Thank you,
Professor.
Mr.
Good night.
Pillai. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Kamath.